August 24th, 2019, Lucas Oil Stadium. A presentation game nobody will remember for a single snap that happened in it. Late in the fourth quarter, the news breaks on phone in the stands. Andrew Luck, the #1 overall pick.
With the first pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, Andrew Luck.
The franchise, the reason the city believed the post-Manning era was going to be fine, is retiring.
And I felt stuck in it, and the only way I see out is to no longer play football.
He's 29 years old, and he walks off his own field. 60,000 people boo him. Not scattered, not a section, the stadium. The man who took more punishment for that organization than any player of his generation gets booed off the grass by the people he took it for.
Andrew Luck, in his first 3 seasons in this league, took an unholy amount of punishment. I've never seen anything quite like the punishment he took.
He said afterward that it hurt. Of course it did. 7 years later, that booing looks like one of the ugliest moments the sport had produced. Because Andrew Luck was right. He was right about his body, right about the math, and right about something the entire league had spent the year since quietly admitting. Nobody listened. Everybody booed. Here's what he actually saw.
Sorry.
You have to start with what happened to him, because the story doesn't work without the inventory. Andrew Luck arrives in Indianapolis in 2012 as the most hyped quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning, and he inherits a 2-14 roster. Not a contender with a hole at quarterback, a gutted team. So the plan, such as it was, became, let Andrew fix it. He made the Pro Bowl in each of his first 3 seasons. He also got sacked 156 times in those 3 years, more than any quarterback in football over that stretch. And sacks are only the ones that got recorded. The hits were constant, the pocket was a rumor, and the offensive line in front of him was, at best, a suggestion. Then the bill came due. Torn cartilage in his ribs, a partially torn abdomen, a lacerated kidney, an internal organ injury from playing a game, concussions, and in 2017, a torn labrum in his throwing shoulder that cost him an entire season and never truly went away.
It is most likely that he had a labral tear, which is a cartilage tear in the shoulder. When this is in the dominant arm of a thrower of any caliber, it's not just the short-term recovery, but the long-term recovery can be somewhat delayed. And none of us really know what was seen at the time of surgery that might mitigate how quickly an athlete can get back.
Read that list again, and remember, he was 27 when most of it had already happened. Here's the part that makes the booing so hard to defend. He came back, all the way back. In 2018, after missing a full year, Andrew Luck threw 39 touchdowns, dragged Indianapolis back to the playoffs, made his 4th Pro Bowl, and was named Comeback Player of the Year. He didn't limp back into the league. He returned to being one of the best quarterbacks in it. So when he walked away the following August, this was not a man quitting because it got hard. This was a man who had already proven he could climb the whole mountain again, and who was staring at doing it a 3rd time. For a calf injury that had turned into an ankle injury that wouldn't resolve. That's the thing he described afterward. And it's the actual thesis of his retirement. The cycle, injury, pain, rehab, injury. He said it had taken the joy out of the game. He said he was in a pain spiral he couldn't see the end of. He wasn't guessing about whether he could come back. He knew he could. He just knew exactly what it would cost, because he'd paid it already. So why did an entire stadium turn on him? Because Andrew Luck violated the sport's founding myth, that a football player will give his body to the game until the game takes it. We built the entire culture on that. Some rub dirt on it, play through it. The guys who wrecked themselves for our Sundays are the guys we made statues of. Luck did something the myth had no category for. He looked at the deal, did the arithmetic, and declined, while he was still good enough to be wanted, still young enough to have a decade left, still owed tens of millions of dollars. That's what got booed. Not disloyalty, autonomy. And if you've ever wondered why sports fans get so strange about player empowerment, that's the whole answer right there. In one stadium, in one night. If this is the kind of thing you like thinking about, that's more or less what this channel is. Subscribe if you want more of it. Anyway, here's the part that actually vindicates him. Everything that's happened since has proven him right. Start with the obvious. We now know, in clinical detail, what a career of repeated head trauma does to a brain. Mike Webster, Junior Shao, Dave Durson. The names are the entire argument. When Luck retired, the CTE research was already public. The league was simply hoping we'd stop asking. Then look at what the NFL itself did. The league that booed him spent the following years legislating violence out of its own product. Kickoff rules, practice restrictions, targeting, the Oklahoma drill, the most macho ritual in football. Banned outright. Every one of those changes is the institution quietly agreeing with the thing Andrew Luck said out loud. And look at the players. Luck was treated as an aberration in 2019. He isn't anymore. Guys leave earlier now. They sit out when the medical staff says sit out. They talk about their bodies and assets with a finite life rather than resources to be spent to zero. Here's the cleanest test of all. He is 36 years old. He can walk, he got his master's degree, he coached high school ball for the fun of it. And in November of 2024, Stanford hired him as the general manager of its football program. A newly created role that put him above the entire operation. In his first year, he brought in Frank Reich, his old NFL head coach, as interim head coach, and Stanford won more games than the year before for the first time in a decade. Now he's in year 2 with a real rebuild underway. That is a man with a second act, not a limp, not a settlement, not a documentary about what football took from him. A career. The alternate version of Andrew Luck plays 4 more seasons for a middling roster, gets hit 2,000 more times, and we say what a shame about his shoulder. Now, the case against him isn't nothing, and I'd be doing this badly if I skipped it. The timing was genuinely rough. 2 weeks before the season opener, training camp done, roster built, every plan in that building constructed around him. Backup quarterbacks aren't hired in late August. If you're a teammate who spent the whole offseason preparing for a season with Andrew Luck, you have a right to feel something about that. And the news leaked mid-game. He didn't choose that. A report broke while he was sitting on the sideline in street clothes, which meant the fans found out on their phones instead of from him. People weren't just booing a decision, they were booing an ambush, in real time, with no information. There's also an argument that he could have played. He wasn't medically disqualified. No doctor told him he had to stop. He chose. And a lot of people who watched football their whole lives had never seen a healthy enough player at the top of the sport simply decide he was finished. So no, the crowd that night wasn't made up of villains. They were blindsided, and in the middle of losing something they loved. That's the fair version. Here's why it still doesn't hold up. Because every one of those objections is about timing and communication. None of them are about whether he was right, and the thing he was right about is the only part that mattered. So, what did we actually miss? Not football is dangerous. Everyone knows football is dangerous. That's not the insight. The thing Luck was saying, and the thing that got drowned out by the booing, is that a player is allowed to decide the price is too high, and that deciding it isn't weakness, or betrayal, or quitting. It's a person doing math about their own life with information nobody else has, because nobody else lives in that body. We wanted him to be the myth. He decided to be a person instead, and the crowd, in real time, told him what it thought of that choice. He apologized to those fans afterward. By the way, he said he was sorry, which is somehow the most Andrew Luck detail in the entire story. The guy who got booed for protecting his own body ended up saying sorry to the people who booed. He didn't owe anybody that. He said it anyway. 7 years on, I don't know a single serious football person who thinks he made the wrong call, which means the only people who were wrong that night were the ones making noise. So what do you think? Has the league actually learned anything, or did we just get better at pretending? Comments as always. And go watch the Enforcers video next. It's the other half of this exact conversation. I'll put it right there.